I caught wind of my wife plotting to cheat on me, and she was getting help from her best friend, all while I was stuck working overtime. So, quietly, I moved every cent of our savings and filed for divorce while she was out there betraying me. Never thought I'd be sharing my life like this, but apparently, life has a twisted sense of humor. First, some context. I'm 36, male, and I work in industrial market development manager. I've been with the same company for 9 years, climbing from inside sales all the way up to regional manager. My wife, Emma, 33, teaches dance part-time and does freelance graphic design on the side whenever inspiration strikes. We've been married for 5 years, but together for 7. We got a solid prenup. I'd seen too many coworkers get financially wrecked in divorces, and Emma surprisingly didn't mind. She said she understood wanting to protect what each of us brought into the marriage. Now, here's where things get interesting. Emma's been driving this 2018 car with transmission issues for months. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make you wonder if today's the day you're calling an Uber to work. She'd been dropping hints about wanting something newer and more reliable, which seemed fair. I drive a company truck, so I've never had to stress about whether my ride would start. Around 2 months ago, she got more specific. She showed me listings for a certified pre-owned Toyota Corolla. Nothing extravagant, around $32,000. Problem was, we didn't have that kind of cash lying around since we'd been aggressively paying down my student loans and our mortgage. Still, I thought, she deserves something dependable. She'd been patient about our financial priorities, and I could pick up some overtime to make it happen. So, I said yes to every overtime opportunity, weekends, late-night calls, covering for coworkers on vacation. The industrial equipment world doesn't sleep. I ended up working 60 to 70-hour weeks for about 2 months, stashing every extra dollar into what I called the car fund. Emma seemed fine with my crazy schedule, even saying she appreciated all my effort to make something she wanted happen. Her best friend Olivia would come by to keep her company while I was at work, which I thought was sweet. Olivia's divorced, works at IT startup, and has always been cool. They'd have wine nights, watch shows, do whatever friends. And now, the twist you're waiting for. Last Tuesday, I finished a site visit way earlier than expected. What was supposed to take 3 hours only took 30 minutes. I got home around 7 p.m. instead of my usual 10 p.m., and I heard voices in the kitchen. It was Emma and Olivia talking, and it sounded normal at first. I figured I'd quietly grab a beer and let them know I was home. That's when I caught Olivia saying something about timing, and Emma replying that she needed to be careful about when she made her move. At first, I assumed they were talking about a work project or maybe planning a surprise for someone's birthday. But then Emma started saying she'd been thinking about it more and more, especially with me working these insane overtime hours, and that maybe now was the perfect chance to see what else was out there. Olivia agreed, saying Emma had been mulling this over for weeks, and it was time to stop overthinking it. According to Olivia, Emma deserved to explore her options and figure out if there was something better that fit her needs. Olivia even offered to help with the logistics, claiming she had connections that could make the whole thing run smoothly. I'm standing there thinking, okay, weird way to talk about a work project. And then Emma said the thing that literally made my blood run cold. She admitted she was worried about the financial side, but Olivia reassured her that she could always come back to her current situation if the new thing didn't work out. That I'd probably take her back because, well, I'm too nice for my own good. I've watched enough episodes of every cheating spouse show to know exactly what kind of conversation I was overhearing. This wasn't about birthdays or work projects. This was my wife planning an affair and treating our marriage like a backup plan. I quietly set my beer down, walked back to my truck, and just sat there for about 20 minutes trying to process what I'd heard. Then I drove around for another hour before coming home, pretending like everything was normal. Emma asked how my day went. I said it was fine, and we went to bed like nothing had happened. The next few days were surreal. Emma started dropping hints about needing space to figure things out, about feeling stuck in the same routine for too long. She asked if I thought people could love each other, but still need to explore other connections. Subtle, right? By Friday night, she finally worked up the nerve to have the big talk. She said she'd been thinking and felt like we'd married too young, and that maybe she needed some time and space to figure out what she really wanted. That she loved me, but wasn't sure she was in love with me anymore. All the classic lines from the I want to cheat, but make it sound noble playlist. Then she suggested maybe staying at Olivia's place for a few weeks to get some perspective and really think things through. And, of course, if we were meant to be together, we'd find our way back to each other, right? I asked her straight up if there was someone else. She swore there wasn't, said she'd never do that to me. She just needed to be alone to figure herself out. Olivia had offered her couch space and even suggested they might take a little trip somewhere to clear her head. So I said, okay, if that's what you need, I get it. I'll keep working, keep saving money, and give you all the space you need to figure things out. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already called a divorce attorney Friday morning. Emma moved out on Sunday, taking her clothes, her laptop, some books, the usual stuff for a temporary separation. She hugged me at the door and said she hoped we could work things out, that this wasn't necessarily the end, just a pause to gain some clarity. Tuesday morning, I went to the bank and moved all our savings, including the $15,000 I'd been building for the car, into a new account under my name only. Thanks to our prenup, I was well within my rights. Her name wasn't on my work accounts anyway, and I left the joint checking account alone, except for redirecting my direct deposit. On Wednesday, I had the divorce papers drawn up. Nothing vindictive, just a straightforward dissolution, citing irreconcilable differences. Thanks to the prenup, it was clean. We each keep what we brought in, split the house proceeds if we sell, and no alimony. By Thursday, Emma texted asking if I'd given any thought to us and whether I was ready for a real conversation about working on our relationship. I replied that I had plenty of thoughts and was definitely ready to talk. Could she come by Friday evening? She seemed excited, saying she'd been thinking too and was ready to discuss our future. Friday evening, she arrived with takeout and started talking about how her time away had made her realize how much she missed our life together. How maybe she'd been overthinking things. How sometimes stepping away helps you appreciate what you have. That's when I handed her the divorce papers. I've never seen anyone's face change so fast. She went from nervous and excited to confused, then angry, all within about 5 seconds. She demanded to know what the papers meant, if this was some kind of joke, why I was being so dramatic about her needing a little space. I told her I knew exactly what kind of space she was looking for, and that I'd decided to give her all the space in the world permanently. She pressed for details, so I explained that I'd overheard her conversation with Olivia the previous week. Not every detail, since I didn't stick around for the whole planning session, but enough to know she was plotting to cheat and expected me to just wait like a faithful golden retriever while she explored her options. The look on her face said it all. She tried to claim I'd misunderstood, taken things out of context, that she'd never actually done anything. I told her that was perfect. It made the divorce even cleaner. No adultery complications, just two people wanting different things. Then she asked about money, whether she could access the savings account to get her own place, or maybe buy a reliable car to start over. I told her the account had been closed. The money I'd earned working overtime the past 2 months was now in an account she couldn't touch, because, funny enough, I decided I wasn't funding her exploration phase after all. That's when she got really angry, claiming I was being controlling, that taking away her access to money she'd been counting on was financial abuse. I reminded her that, according to our prenup, the money I'd earned was mine, and she'd never actually contributed to the car fund she'd been planning to use for her independence tour. She left, taking her food with her. So, part of me wonders, should I have confronted her first? Maybe I misunderstood, and she was just having some kind of quarter-life crisis that had nothing to do with cheating. But the more I think about it, the more confident I am that I heard exactly what I think I heard. I'm not trying to ruin her life or leave her destitute. She has a job, she can stay with Olivia, and she's a grown adult who can figure out her own transportation and housing. I just don't see why I should bankroll her journey of self-discovery when that journey apparently involves other people's beds. But maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should have tried to work things out. Saturday morning, the day after I served her papers, she showed up at my house at 6 a.m. I was getting ready for work when someone started pounding on the door like they were trying to wake the entire neighborhood. She wanted to talk, really talk this time. No games, no drama. She admitted that maybe she had considered other options, but seeing the divorce papers made her realize she was just scared of commitment and didn't actually want anyone else. That I was the best thing that ever happened to her, and that she'd been an idiot. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but that ship had sailed. If she'd wanted to work on our marriage, she could have done it before planning her affair, with Olivia's help, not just with Olivia. And that's when things got interesting. She claimed Olivia had been planting ideas in her head, telling her she was settling and deserved to see what else was out there. Olivia, she said, was bitter about her own divorce and had been projecting onto Emma's marriage. Emma claimed she never would have actually gone through with anything if I hadn't jumped straight to divorce. I asked her directly, was there a specific someone you were planning to explore with, or was this more of a general shopping expedition? She went quiet for a long time, then finally admitted there was a guy from her dance studio who'd been flirting with her for months. Nothing had actually happened, but she'd been wondering what it would be like. Olivia had been encouraging her to find out, telling her life was short and she shouldn't sit around wondering, what if forever? So there it was, not just some theoretical curiosity. She had a specific target in mind. I thanked her for finally being honest and told her it didn't change a thing. She started crying, begging if we could try counseling, maybe work through this together, saying that throwing away 6 years would be crazy. But here's the thing. She wasn't sorry she'd been planning to cheat. She was sorry she got caught. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, she would have gone through with her plan, expecting me to be waiting here like nothing happened while she sampled the merchandise. I told her I'd think about it, mostly just to get her to leave so I could go to work, but my mind was already made up. Over the weekend, another thing happened. Emma tried to access our joint checking account and discovered I'd changed my direct deposit. She called me Saturday evening, upset, asking about it. I explained that since we were getting divorced, it made sense to separate our finances completely. She got frustrated, saying she needed money for basic expenses because she couldn't survive on her dance income alone. I reminded her that, according to the prenup, we were each responsible for our own expenses during the separation. She could pick up more hours, take on extra work, or find another solution. Monday morning, Olivia called me, the first time we'd spoken since all this started. She said Emma was really struggling and maybe I was being too harsh. That Emma had made a mistake but didn't deserve her whole life blown up over it. I asked Olivia if she thought I deserved to have my life blown up over Emma's mistake. If she really thought I should have quietly funded Emma's affair and waited patiently for her to decide whether to keep me or trade me in. Olivia went quiet, then admitted she hadn't realized I'd overheard the conversation and maybe she'd given Emma some bad advice. I told Olivia that Emma was a grown woman who made her own choices. If she was struggling now, she could figure out her own solutions. I wasn't her backup plan or her safety net anymore. Olivia tried to argue that Emma hadn't actually done anything, that thinking about something and doing it were two different things. I pointed out that planning something and doing it were also technically different, but not by much. If I hadn't found out, Emma would have gone through with her plan. The conversation ended pretty quickly after that. So, I'm staying the course. No reconciliation talks, no counseling, no let's work through this together. I'm moving forward with the divorce and letting Emma figure out her own life. Monday started normal enough, if you can call anything about this situation normal. I was catching up on work I'd been neglecting during the domestic drama when HR called. Apparently, someone reported that I was going through a messy divorce and might be emotionally unstable at work. My clients are managers and operations, practical people who care about whether their conveyor run, not about my personal life. But HR has to take these things seriously. So I had to sit through a painfully awkward conversation about my emotional state and whether I needed time off or counseling resources. I gave them the brief version: getting divorced, everything handled through lawyers, no impact on work performance. My manager backed me up, pointing out that my numbers were actually better than usual. Apparently overtime pays off, but it was still humiliating. Tuesday, I got a text from Emma asking if we could meet to discuss logistics. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I figured we needed to sort out practical stuff anyway. Big mistake. Emma showed up looking like she'd been surviving on energy drinks and stress, which honestly might have been true. She started off apologetic, said she was sorry about the HR incident, but that she was desperate and didn't know how else to get my attention. I told her contacting my workplace was completely out of line and asked her what logistics we actually needed to discuss that couldn't go through lawyers. And then she dropped the bomb. She was pregnant. After about 15 minutes of panic and rapid mental math, I realized the timeline didn't work. We hadn't been intimate since before she moved out, and that was barely 3 weeks ago. Way too soon for her to know, too soon for any symptoms, just too soon for any of it. I thought maybe it could have been from before, but I didn't notice any obvious signs. When I pointed that out, she got defensive. She said she'd been feeling off for a while, but didn't want to worry me with all the overtime I'd been pulling. Then she told me she'd taken a test that morning, and it was positive. I asked if she wanted to go to a doctor together, confirm it officially. This was serious news that could change everything about our divorce. She said she wasn't ready for that yet. She needed time to process, but wanted me to know because, in her words, it changed everything, and we owed it to our child to try to work things out. I told her that medical confirmation would be necessary before making any major decisions, and that if she was actually pregnant, we'd sort out co-parenting arrangements through our lawyers. Her face fell. I think she expected me to drop everything, call off the divorce, and rush into reconciliation. Wednesday, I got a call from an unknown number. It was the guy from Emma's dance studio, the one she'd admitted she'd been planning to explore with. He wanted to let me know he had no idea Emma was married while flirting with him, and that he completely backed off once he found out. Apparently, Emma had told him we were separated and getting divorced, but someone else mentioned we were still married when she started showing interest. I appreciated the call and told him he hadn't done anything wrong. Emma had misrepresented our situation, and he did the right thing by stepping back once he knew the truth. But it confirmed something I'd been suspecting about Emma's timeline. She'd been laying the groundwork with this guy for weeks, maybe months. This wasn't some sudden crisis of faith in our marriage. Next day, Emma texted asking if I'd thought more about the pregnancy and what it meant for us. I replied that I was happy to discuss co-parenting once she had medical confirmation. She called immediately, upset that I was being cold about our potential child. I explained that I wasn't being cold, just practical. If she was pregnant, we'd handle it responsibly, but I wasn't making life-changing decisions based on a home pregnancy test and vague symptoms. She hung up on me. Friday was the most interesting day. I got home from work to find Emma's car in my driveway and her sitting on my porch steps. She'd apparently been waiting for about an hour. She said she needed to tell me the truth about everything, that she couldn't keep living with the lies. So, I sat down and listened. Turns out the pregnancy was fake. She'd hoped it would make me reconsider the divorce, but realized I was going to insist on medical confirmation, and the whole thing would fall apart. The situation with the dance guy was real, but far more extensive than she'd originally admitted. They'd been texting for months, met up for coffee a few times, and during her trial separation, she had actually been planning to sleep with him. Olivia had been pushing the whole idea, insisting that Emma deserved to see what else was out there before committing for good. But when Emma finally made a move, Dance Guy pulled back after discovering she was still married. That's when it hit her. Her big plan wasn't going to pan out the way she'd imagined. She said seeing the divorce papers had been a wake-up call, that she was on the verge of losing the best thing in her life over a dumb fantasy fueled by too many movies and too much questionable advice from Olivia. She asked if there was any way I could forgive her, if we could start over. I'm not gonna lie, seeing her so broken was rough. This wasn't the confident woman who had asked for space to explore her options. This was someone realizing she'd trashed her life for nothing. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but it didn't change anything. These weren't spur-of-the-moment choices. She'd planned this over months. The only reason she was confessing now was because her scheme had failed and she was facing the fallout. She asked me what she was supposed to do now, where she was supposed to go, how she was going to rebuild her life. I told her those were the questions she should have asked herself before blowing up ours. She left around 9, and I haven't heard from her since. Olivia, on the other hand, called me Saturday morning. Apparently, Emma had been crashing with her and was in a really bad spot. Olivia wanted to know if I was enjoying destroying Emma's life, or if maybe I could show some mercy. I told her straight. Emma destroyed her own life, and I wasn't going down with her. If Olivia was really her friend, she'd help Emma figure out a way forward instead of trying to guilt me into fixing it. Olivia called me heartless. I said I was being practical. That ended the conversation pretty quickly. So, the divorce is moving forward. No more fake pregnancies, no more workplace harassment. And somehow, I'm the villain for refusing to be the backup husband. It's tempting to feel guilty, especially seeing Emma genuinely upset, but she's not upset about hurting me. She's upset about facing the consequences of her own choices. This week turned into a masterclass in why you should never underestimate what someone can come up with when their back's against the wall. It kicked off Monday with a call from my lawyer. Emma had filed a motion claiming I was hiding assets and demanding temporary spousal support while the divorce moved forward. According to her filing, I'd supposedly transferred large sums out of our joint accounts, leaving her unable to cover her expenses. My lawyer wasn't worried. Our prenup covers exactly this kind of nonsense, and I had records showing the money came from my overtime work. Still, it meant extra legal fees and delays, which I'm starting to suspect was exactly what she wanted. Tuesday brought an interesting twist. I got a call from my mortgage company asking about my plans for the house. Apparently, someone had reached out claiming to represent both of us in the divorce and asking about options for one spouse to take full responsibility for the mortgage. That someone wasn't my lawyer. Turns out Emma had called them herself, going by Mrs. Carter, her never taking my last name style, and asking how to remove a spouse from the mortgage. She even gave them our case number, which she shouldn't have had access to, and tried to get details about refinancing. The mortgage company couldn't share anything without proper authorization, but wanted me to confirm if this was legit. I had to explain, no, my wife wasn't authorized to make inquiries for me. And yes, she was probably trying to figure out if she could somehow claim rights to the house despite the prenup. Wednesday is when things got downright creative. I came home to find my neighbor waiting in her yard. She's a retired teacher, probably in her 80s, the kind of friendly neighbor you chat with about weather or yard work, but never really swap life stories with. She told me a young woman had stopped by earlier, asking questions about me. Had we been arguing loudly? Did she ever see other women coming around? Was I controlling or aggressive? The woman had said she was a social worker doing a routine check on a domestic situation. Polite, professional, the whole thing, but my neighbor thought it was strange since she'd never noticed any domestic issues. Our neighbor is sharper than she looks. She asked the social worker for ID and business cards, and the woman suddenly got evasive and left in a hurry. Based on the description, it sounded exactly like Olivia. I thanked my neighbor and called my lawyer right away. He said it technically counted as harassment, and we could file a complaint, but it might be smarter to just document everything and use it later if Emma tried to argue I was being unreasonable. Thursday, I decided to take the initiative. I called Olivia directly. Olivia tried to act innocent at first, pretending she had no idea what I was talking about. But the moment I brought up my neighbor's description and the whole social worker story, she got defensive, insisting she was just trying to help her friend. I told her straight up that pretending to be a social worker could be illegal, and that contacting my workplace, mortgage company, and neighbors crossed the line into harassment. I added that if she really wanted to help Emma, she should encourage her to focus on moving forward instead of sabotaging the divorce. Olivia brushed me off, calling me paranoid and insisting she hadn't done anything wrong. According to her, Emma was just struggling and trying to understand her legal options. I reminded her that Emma already had a lawyer for that, and sneaking around asking neighbors about domestic violence wasn't a legal tactic, it was desperation. That didn't go over well. Olivia hung up on me. Friday brought the weekend's big finale. I was working late, legitimately this time. We had a packaging line emergency at a processing plant, and by the time I got home it was around 11 p.m. My front door was slightly ajar. I've watched enough true crime shows to know that's never a good sign. I stayed in my truck and called the police, waiting for them to arrive. When the officers showed up, they did a full walkthrough. No signs of forced entry, nothing appeared missing. But then I noticed something on the kitchen counter, a set of keys. Emma's keys. Apparently, she had let herself in, poked around, and left the keys behind. No note, no explanation, just the keys. The officers asked if I wanted to file a report. I said, not this time, but I want it documented that Emma entered without permission and returned her keys. One officer asked if this was part of a domestic situation. I gave her a brief version. She said this kind of thing happens more often than people think. Divorces can bring out behavior that surprises even the person acting out. She recommended I change the locks and consider a security camera to protect myself if things escalated further. Next day morning, I changed the locks. Spent the afternoon setting up a basic doorbell camera system to record who comes and goes. Monday morning brought a call from my lawyer with both good news and bad news. The good news: Emma's motion for spousal support was denied. The prenup held up exactly as it should, and the judge wasn't impressed with her claim that I was hiding assets. The bad news: Emma's lawyer had filed for an extension, claiming they needed more time to review financial documents. More delays, more legal fees, but probably not enough to change the ultimate outcome. My lawyer explained this was normal in contentious divorces. Emma was likely trying to buy time, hoping I'd get tired of the fees and agree to a settlement. He asked if I wanted to consider mediation or see it through to the end. I told my lawyer to see it through to the very end. So that's where things stand. Emma has apparently moved on from fake pregnancies and workplace harassment to amateur detective work and breaking and entering. Olivia is now playing dress-up as a social worker. And I'm learning that divorce can bring out a level of creativity in people you didn't even know existed.